Hey everyone, and welcome back to OntarioCryptids. Before we get into the stories, I just want to say how amazing and intuitive my dogs are. Every Saturday I record these episodes for you guys. And every Saturday I'll wake up and have my breakfast and sit and lounge for a little bit before I come downstairs to start recording. And for whatever reason, as soon as I pull up this mic in front of the computer, they look at me and I give them the shush shine and they all disappear. They head upstairs. It is uncanny because any other time I'm sitting here on the computer, they're down here and they're barking and they're playing and they're running around. But when I'm about to record these stories for you guys, they disappear. It's amazing. Okay, so let's get to it. Today we'll be exploring the province of Ontario, Canada. I'm going to be sharing 3 stories from Ontario, and the last story was forwarded to me by a viewer. On that note, if you have a story you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Okay, so go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on the couch or chair and sit back and relax. All right, so this first story takes place December 5th, 2006, and it takes place, the nearest town is Brockville, and it's in the province of Ontario. I'm not sure what county it's in. In any case, this one is a short one, but I think you're going to enjoy it. Here we go, guys. My father, who was 75 at the time, was driving to Addison to see his mechanic to give him an early Christmas gift. I was 49 at the time, and I was sitting in the passenger seat, front seat, of a 2002 Montana van. We were approaching a curve in the road with a house on the left with 2 large cedars, when I noticed a large dark brown object, furry like an otter's coat, run behind a billboard sign, Lucky Loon Campground, into the brush and wooded area. I saw it for about 5 seconds as it made its way over the crossroad. I estimated its size by comparing it to the cedars that were on the property, and it was more than half the cedar's height of around 16 to 17 feet, so approximately 8 to 9 feet. It appeared to be running upright like a man with a swinging motion. Thick body, trunk was about 3 to 4 feet wide, arms held tightly to its side of body, no visual hands, rear view only, appearance of shoulders and head. There was newly fallen snow from the night before, but it seemed that the object just jumped over the shoulder of the road and left an impression on a small rise or bank towards the bush. It seemed as if the impression was an irregular shape, large peanut shaped with snow in the center where the arch would be of a foot. Nearby, there were broken cedars and a newly formed path through the bush was evident. I did not report this event to the authorities, but I mentioned it to residents, husband and wife, who came walking by later. I told them to be careful and talked to 2 friends as well about the incident. So this story takes place on July 9th or 10th, 2002. The nearest town is Blind River, Ontario. I'm not sure what I saw except it wasn't a bear. The area is north of North Shore of Lake Huron, north of Blind River by about 20 miles on Bearhead Lake. The area is incredibly dense bush and in most places impenetrable due to low scrub and swamp. We were at a cottage, one of about 8 or 9 on the lake on the east side. The west side of the lake had no habitation, just rock and thick bush. There are lots of critters, bears, wolves, moose, and deer, along with porcupines. I am fairly familiar with all of these animals and their noises, and for most part they are scared of humans and they bolt when they see a person. We had been at the cottage a few days, perhaps 3, when, while sitting around the kitchen table talking about fishing late at night with my sons, we heard a series of grunts, chirps, and squeals. I thought it might have been a bear with young across the lake, as the cubs often can be heard squealing and playing in this area. The noises, however, were much more organized than bear cubs and were coming from 2 different locations. The distance across the lake is perhaps 500 yards. It was fairly obvious that the sounds were coming from 2 areas about 15 degrees apart. The noise of wood breaking and banging was quite loud, and it was interspersed with a series of whooping grunts. Best description. We stepped out onto the deck to listen better. It was fairly obvious that one noise was getting closer to the other. My neighbor, who has lived on the lake for 40 years, was out having a beer and taking the night air. His knowledge of the woods and area is way better than mine. I called him over to listen, and as we all hushed and listened for a few minutes, I could tell by his head shaking that he had no idea what it was. The noises were really loud, and it sounded like mayhem was breaking loose, trees being smashed and banging noises, shouts and whoops. Then it went quiet, really quickly, which was followed by a series of deep whooping noises and clicks, which went on intermittently past the point I went to sleep. The following day, my lads headed out in the canoe out to where a fallen tree could be seen across the lake the day before. Immediately, it was obvious that the tree had gone from our perspective. I shouted to them, "Where's the tree?" They went across and then started to paddle back. I was looking at eagles overhead through the binoculars when I scanned back to the lake and my lads. I drew a line on the shore behind them when I see this big black brown thing sitting on a boulder about 20 feet above the water. I thought at first it was a bear, but when a bear sits, its legs just stick out in front, slightly splayed. This thing had knees, and it was sitting on its haunches with its knees up to its chest. I was not sure of what I was seeing, so I looked away and went back to it, and I could see that I was not mistaken. It had knees, and it was covered in hair with no neck. It sat on its haunches and then slapped its hands on the rock about 3 times, both hands at the same time. I started waving and shouting to the kids who were about 300 yards away and pointing and trying to keep an eye on it through the binoculars. I could not tell if the kids understood, so I went back looking and waving my hands and pointing. The thing just stood up and walked into the bush behind it. The thing had no neck and looked kind of straggly and matted. It did not have a bear's profile. It was like the back of its head sloped down to its back. It was huge on the top, like the chest area, but it had scrawny, by comparison, legs. The hair on its legs was thinning and lighter. When the kids got onto the dock, I asked them if they saw what I was pointing at. They didn't and couldn't figure out why I was waving. I told them I had seen a bear. When I asked them about where the tree had gone, they told me someone had dragged it to the beach, which, in their words, was weird. I did not and have not told them or anyone of what I saw. It's sort of embarrassing, and I figure they would have thought I was just kidding around with them. The noises that we heard the night before continued that evening, but from a point further up the lake. We did not hear them again for 2 nights after that. Then we heard about an hour of crazy noises similar to, and I hate to say it, to a monkey, but with great bass or chest sound in it. The sounds had weight. Moose make odd noises, also bears, but neither had the weight of this sound. It was a big sound. I have heard owls make the most amazing complex series of whoops and yells at ear-splitting volumes, but they don't have the weight or bass these sounds had, nor the organization in the way the sounds that we heard were vocalized. I am sure of what I saw, and I can't think of any creature that would match what I saw. It feels really weird even to be writing this, and I'm sure on reflection, what I have written above is the absolute truth as I remember it. All right, so here's the last story of the day. This one takes place mid-August 2020. And it takes place in Algonquin Park, Ontario. Now, before I get into the story, Algonquin Park is massive. I don't know the exact campsite. It doesn't really matter. There are lots of campsites all dispersed within Algonquin. Some of them are more hard to get to. In other words, you have to portage to them. Other ones, you can just drive into them. But anyways, Algonquin Park is massive, absolutely massive. But let's get to the story. This one, like I said, was sent in by a viewer. So in doing a search regarding Bigfoot, I came across your channel on YouTube. I'm going to share my story simply because I have no clue what it could mean or what could have caused it. So maybe in reaching out, someone will have an idea. We were camping last August very near Algonquin Park. It was around 2:30 a.m. because a very loud noise startled me. It happened a couple of times, and when I went to pull out my phone to record it, the noise stopped. All I can say was that it was seriously loud, and the sound was like a cross between a whoo and a hoot. Never heard it before, and no animal, bird, or other creature could have made this noise that I came across in my search. Also, the next morning on the picnic table, which freaked me out more than the sound, we found a gift, maybe. There, placed on the seat of the picnic table in perfect alignment and side by side, were 2 Q-tips. 1. We never brought Q-tips to our campsite or even in the car. 2. They were Q-tips that had pointed tops. I have seen them years ago, but never have bought them, and not entirely sure you still can. 3. Our campsite was in a more remote back area of the woods. We were the furthest away from anyone who were staying there, still accessible, but not for any means of going to a washroom or anything that would make sense. Surrounding us were the deeper woods of Algonquin. I wish I could put a name to the sound and seriously would like to understand the Q-tips. I was up very early in the morning. I can never sleep well while camping, so makes no sense for someone to sneak in the middle of the night and place them perfectly. My husband is convinced that it's a Sasquatch, but I am more cynical. Albeit, I cannot explain this one at all. We have told others, and no one can explain it but looks at us like we have 2 heads when we tell them. Anyone who can give some thoughts to this, it would be more than appreciated. First of all, Kathy, I would like to thank you for submitting your story to Ontario Cryptids. It's truly appreciated. And again, like I stated to you, I would have to agree with your husband. I do think that you have had some sort of gifting experience with a Sasquatch. Why Q-tips? I'm not sure. And I know the Q-tips that you mean. I haven't seen those either for a very long time. I know I asked you guys whether or not you felt anything unusual that maybe you weren't paying very close attention to, like something odd that may have happened. And the only thing that you mentioned was that your husband had heard noises in the woods around you. Maybe that was them observing you. I have lots of questions, but I am not an expert, so I don't have the answers for you. But I do think that you and your husband had a Sasquatch experience. And I do believe you were gifted the Q-tips. Why? I don't know. Maybe somebody else can answer that for me. However, I'm curious whether or not you've been to this campsite before many, many times. And maybe perhaps I'm reaching here because, like I said, I'm not an expert, but perhaps if you were there multiple times and this wasn't your first time, maybe you're doing something right. Maybe you're respecting the woods and they're appreciating it and they wanted to leave you a gift this time. But thank you again, Kathy, for sharing your story. And yeah, I'm curious if you would, if you can answer some of those questions in the comments below. That would be interesting to see whether that was your first time there or whether you were there previously. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. I'm trying not to have a lot of commentary, as you can see. However, I did want to respond to Kathy of my thoughts. And again, these are purely my thoughts. I'm not a researcher. I'm not an expert. I'm just a storyteller who has had her own little, I would say, small experiences. However, that's going to be it, like I stated. So thank you guys for coming out and checking out another weekly upload. Truly appreciated. Again, I truly appreciate all your support, all your comments, all your likes. It goes a long ways in getting my story out there to the masses. Every time you guys like it and comment, you're sending it out there to everyone in YouTube land. So thank you very much for that. It's truly appreciated. All right, so if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your stories on this channel. This might even be a very therapeutic experience for you to finally get it off your chest. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you all next week.